Japan has to do the right thing.
As you might already know, Japan finally signed this in 2014, and this seems a big progress, right? But the enforcement still doesn't happen, so it's kinda meaningless.
The biggest issue with The Hague is enforcement. Even though you have what we call a written order, a written ruling is not going to be executed. On a paper base, you can win a case, but you will never be able to meet your children again. The victim has to go to Japan, knock on the door of the abductor, and you have to make a request if they could comply with the ruling. If the abductor refuses, there is nothing you can do. So it's not enforcement. If it's in France, the police is going to come to pick up the kids because you have to comply with law. So there is no real enforcement in Japan.
So they can ignore completely.
Exactly. They can ignore and no penalty.
I've been involved in this child abduction issue in Japan for 12 years. I'm sure more than 200 cases, actually talking to parents. And those could be within Japan or international cases where the parent lives outside of Japan. The research that I've done indicates in Japan right now, there would be an estimated 3 million children in Japan who do not have contact or access with their other parent after divorce. Each of those cases is a human rights violation, but this is happening all the time in Japan after divorce and family court, or even prior to, during separation. There isn't a good legal framework to enforce visitation.
Japanese police arrested him before he could make it to the U.S. Embassy. He's now facing charges of abduction.
Since then, has spent more than 40 days in detention in a cell with lights on 24 hours a day.
More than 400 U.S. children kidnapped to Japan since 1994, and the government of Japan has not returned a single American child.
In a country that's never, ever returned a child to any foreign country.
Japan is gaining an unwanted reputation as a black hole for international child abductions.
I believe the present system actually rewards people who are doing serious harm to children.
I know sounds crazy, but this is coming from the idea that traditionally, children in Japan are considered as property of the household, not as individuals with rights. As soon as your children move to a new household, you become an outsider with no right to disturb the new one. So if you still try to get your child back, you might be arrested as a criminal, which actually happens in Japan, even if you are still married and have all the rights as a parent. This is quite harsh, isn't it?
In Australia, if a woman gets divorced, only 1% of mothers never see their children after divorce. But in Japan, if the father takes the children or if the mother takes the children, the other parent can never meet their own children. Even I'm married, even if we have joint custody or we don't have joint custody, right now, I am married, therefore I have joint custody with my husband, but I'm not meeting my children.
And if you're a foreign parent, what makes even harder for you may be that you have to leave Japan soon after the divorce. And being outside in Japan, it would be extremely difficult to get your child.
日本国内では全く相変わらず報道されないという状態でして。
Japanese media tend to reduce the issue, and quite often, which is also a big mistake, most media will talk about father, not parents. Most victims are fathers.
A couple of years ago, it was sponsored by the Japanese government, by the Japanese embassy. Notable Japanese family law attorney essentially explaining the steps you would need to take if you were trying to take your child from France to Japan and block having your child return.
I don't believe Japan is a society that wishes to harm children, but children are being harmed every day in Japan because of this problem.